And welcome to the Mouthpiece Moment UFC 285 main card preview. This card is going to be awesome. It's going to be a banger, all 5 fights. Super pumped to watch this. Obviously, the biggest story is the return of Jon Bones Jones. Hasn't fought in 3 years, and he's making his heavyweight debut. And the fight will be for the heavyweight title, the vacant heavyweight title. And that's only one of the 2 title fights on this card. The other title fight is Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt for the 8th time against challenger Alexa Grasso from Jalisco. That's right. That's gonna be a banger. I think obviously it's not getting very much hype because all the hype is centered around Jon Bones Jones. One more thing going on is the UFC debut of Bo Nickel. We'll get into that in a little bit. That's kind of a big deal because of the stage and all that, and the type of scenario he's walking into. So far, this is the 3rd installment of these main card previews I've been doing. I've done 2 cards, obviously. Did all 5 on each card. My record is 9-1. So if I've helped you out with anything, let me know. The goal is basically to take a ton of pre-fight media and all the fights that I watch and the research I do and the analysis, and just kind of condense it down for you to watch something usually the day of the fight. So I mean, hopefully this helps you out. Let me know what you think about it. Subscribe, do all that stuff. Let's get into it. The main card opener is at middleweight between Bo Nickel and Jamie Pickett. Now, Bo Nickel, we just mentioned a little bit ago, is making his UFC debut. He's a 3-time NCAA Division I national champion in wrestling at Penn State. Just got into MMA. He just basically started last year. He had 3 fights last year. There's only 3 fights in MMA. 3-0, 2 submissions, 1 KO. He has a 76-inch reach. That's important. Just hang in there. I'll tell you why. Hyper confident, but not a cocky guy. Very much like a college athlete kind of vibe coming off of him. Fights out of American Top Team in Florida. That's an interesting point. I know Jorge Masvidal has been hyping him up for years. Even before he made his debut, Jorge Masvidal kept saying he was going to be a big deal because of his wrestling, and he just has a lot of power. I've only been able to really watch like 2 fights of his, and he just buzzsaw through his opponents. His wrestling is so good that everyone's ready for the takedown, and then he was able to land his power and drop people. The guy's a stud. Now, this is a huge stage to make your debut on, especially, considering that it's a pay-per-view that you're debuting on. You're opening up the main card. That's a big deal. And then, obviously, it's a Jon Jones card. So a ton of eyes on you. It's a place where someone can really, really become overwhelmed with the pressure, but because of his level of wrestling and what he's been on huge stages before. Obviously, different sport, different scenario. I think he's ready. He doesn't really seem like he's bothered at all leading up to this fight. I don't see that being a problem. I think he's ready to really move up the weight class very quickly. And unfortunately for Jamie Pickett, his opponent, that really sets the tone to how this fight is looked at by pretty much everybody. So just a little bit about Jamie the Night Wolf Pickett. By the way, what a badass fucking nickname. That is one of the best nicknames, the Night Wolf. That just sounds dope. I like Jamie Pickett. He seems like a nice guy. 80-inch reach, which he'll have to lean on in this fight because of Bo Nickel's level of wrestling. Just a quick little background on Jamie. Started out 0-3 in the UFC. Then he got 2 unanimous decision victories. And then since then, he's had 2 other fights where he was finished. So his total record is 2-5 in the UFC. Not a great record. This to me seems like a gatekeeper scenario. In a way, he's being fed to the lions, so to speak. I don't necessarily mean like Bo Nickel's unstoppable, but I feel like this is one of those fights where he's set up to fail. He's set up to lose. But there's almost I wouldn't say almost. I think there's less pressure for him. It's basically like, hey, you're supposed to lose. Everyone thinks you're going to lose. You're the huge underdog. The last I saw, and this was yesterday, so I'm sure it changed today. Today's Friday. I saw this on Thursday that Bo Nickel was a minus 1,500 favorite. That is nuts. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's wild. So in his last fight, he took a bunch of nut shots from his opponent, and his opponent had I don't remember I can't say the guy's last name, sorry, but he took a bunch of nut shots, and the opponent actually got a point taken away, and then he got TKO'd that same round with 4 seconds left. Rough way to go. In the lead up to this fight, Jamie has said that he is happy that Bo's getting all the attention, Bo Nickel. And he said another interesting point is he said he didn't even know who Bo Nickel was until he signed the contract. He basically signed the contract and was like, sure, I'll fight him. Didn't know that Bo Nickel had all these collegiate accolades. And he basically said, you know, like, I don't watch wrestling. Like, I don't know. That's another interesting point. See, it's hard. This is one of those fights that's, I guess, sort of hard to pick because you haven't seen much out of Bo Nickel. Jamie Pickett is pretty good. He's good everywhere, not great anywhere. He kind of hangs in a lot of the fights, spends a lot of time on the cage. But just based off of what I've seen, I can see. I think I'm gonna go with Bo Nickel winning by a TKO. I think he's gonna hurt Jamie standing up. It's gonna go to the ground, and he's just gonna finish with strikes. I don't see it lasting very long. It's hard to go off this. I mean, that's a hard one to go off because of the lack of I haven't seen any mistakes really that I've caught from Bo Nickel. Next fight, really pumped. You know, I'm gonna have to drink some water. That's how pumped I am for this one. All right, the next fight is a lightweight fight, 155 pounds, between number 7 Mateusz Gamrot and number 10 Jalin the Tarantula Turner. My friend and a guy that I've had on the show 3 times on my podcast. First off, let me get into Mateusz Gamrot. Actually, first let me get into how this whole fight came about. Originally, Jalin was contracted to fight against Dan Hooker, which is a huge step up. Dan Hooker, I wouldn't say he's like legendary yet, but he's well known for being a gamer, someone who's always down. He's always in a scrap, always a tough fight. I think with about 4 weeks left before the fight, Dan Hooker broke his hand. He had to bail from the fight. Mateusz Gamrot is the only one, according to Jalin, that stepped up to replace him. Now, the interesting thing is I think Dan Hooker's ranked like number 10, and Mateusz is ranked number 7. So this is, I mean, it's actually more beneficial for Jalin because if he wins, now you just beat the number 7 guy as opposed to the number 10 guy. I mean, Mateusz doesn't have as big of a name as Dan Hooker does, but he's ranked higher. So he lost the Dan Hooker fight, but this is a nice step up. Mateusz Gamrot, 22-2, a Polish wild man with a 70.5 inch reach. That's important because, you know, I'll tell you why in a little bit. High level grappler, cardio machine, doesn't stop moving. He's always shooting for these low level, these like ankle pick type of takedowns, and they're not necessarily like it's weird. You watch him and his takedowns, he just dives in there not expecting to get that first takedown, and he basically chain wrestles off that first takedown, and in the scramble, that's where he kind of finds his real takedown. Where he gets the actual takedown is the chain wrestling, the multiple attempts, and eventually they get to the ground. So Jalen's really going to have to, we'll get into Jalin stuff after, but Mateusz is just relentless. He's always grabbing ankles, always getting down there. He's not the best striker out there, so he relies heavily on this scrambling and these relentless takedowns. He got a unanimous decision victory in June of 2022 over Arman Sarukian. I scored that fight 4-1 for Arman. I just felt like Arman was landing a lot more strikes, landing big, heavy body kicks that were hurting Mateusz a lot. Mateusz got some takedowns, but he didn't really do much down there. So, I mean, I scored it 4-1. I feel like he should have lost that fight. Nonetheless, Mateusz got the victory. And then his next fight was in October of last year where he fought Beneil Dariush. He lost that fight in a decision. He tried to out-grapple Beneil Dariush, which is, I mean, that's tough for anyone in the world. Beneil's a high-level jiu-jitsu player, and he tried his best. He did a very good job, but he just couldn't get to that next level, and Beneil was landing some big shots on him. So, I mean, he's 1-1 in his last 2 fights. In his last 3 fights, I feel like he was outstruck by all 3 of them, and none of them have the striking level or acumen that Jalin Turner possesses. So, I mean, it seems pretty clear this is very much a striker versus grappler type of fight. So, on to Jalin Turner, 6'3", lightweight, that's huge. I mean, I think he's the tallest, there's someone else at 6'3" at lightweight. That's huge, though. And he has a 77-inch reach, so that gives him a 6.5-inch reach over Mateusz. And like I said before, he was supposed to fight Dan Hooker. That didn't go down. Jalin has 6 wins in the UFC. All 6 were finishes, 3 submissions, 3 TKOs. Another thing I should mention, I gotta tell you the truth. I gotta tell you guys something, all right? A little secret here. Jalin, his last loss was on April 13, 2019, okay? He was 1-2 after that loss in the UFC. The next month, in May of 2019, he came on the Mouthpiece Moment, and he's been 5-0 ever since. That's all I'm saying. I'm not taking credit for the victories. All I'm saying is that he's been undefeated 5-0 since his first appearance on the Mouthpiece Moment podcast. He's been on 3 episodes. Anyway, let's get back to this. So, high-level striker, Muay Thai, kickboxing, I would say Muay Thai type striker, really sharp when he lands. And when you look at him, you look at his body and his frame, you're like, he's a skinny guy. When you look at him, just, we're talking like a casual fan. You look at him, he's skinny. He's not very big. Obviously, he has to make 155 pounds at 6'3". It's rough. But when he lands strikes, people feel it. Everyone he's fought feels it. And he's been getting better and better every fight. Every time he lands a shot, you see the wince, you see people crumble, especially the body shots. And recently, a few years ago, he matched up with his now wrestling and grappling coach, Ozzy. How do you say that? Dugulubgov? I don't know. I'm sorry, bud. I've never met you, but he's been crediting him with completely transforming his grappling. In this case, it's going to be mostly defensive, which is all he needs. I mean, Jalin's a striker. He wants to stand up. He wants to land these shots. And like I said, when he lands these shots, people crumble. I think that with the transformation in his grappling, he's going to be able to withstand the takedowns, and I think he's going to land a few shots. It's going to really stun Mateusz, and I think he's going to get a big victory. And we're going to see him inside the top 10, probably 7 or 8. And it's going to be awesome. Shout out to Jalin. Good luck, buddy. Next fight is in the welterweight division between number 7, Jeff Neal, and number 9, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Really interesting point to this because I just watched the weigh-ins this morning, the official weigh-ins. And Jeff Neal missed weight by 4 pounds. This was one of the fights that I was completely stuck on. I like both guys. I think both guys are beasts. They're both different styles, but they both get it done. I had a lot of trouble picking this fight. I actually didn't even pick anybody until I heard this morning that Jeff Neal missed weight, so I guess I already gave away my pick. But let's just break down each fighter just so you know. Jeff Neal, he fights out of Fortis MMA, I shouldn't say big camp, but a really sharp camp led by Saif Saud. And they've been really on the come up for the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of their fighters doing big work, doing great work. Their coach I just mentioned, Safe, helped Brandon Moreno before his last victory. So I just talked about him. I think it was the last one I did, the last main card preview. So Jeff's 2-2 over his last 4 fights, but his last 2 fights were back-to-back victories. He has wins over Bilal Muhammad, Nico Price, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and sadly, Vicente Luque. And I say that because I'm a Vicente Luque fan. I love watching him fight. I was pulling for him in that fight. He just was getting smashed up by Jeff Neal, and it bummed me out. But Jeff Neal is a beast. He's got a boulder of a fucking left hand. So anyone who fights him has to watch out for that. Stud athlete, always been that way. Started out 5-0 in the UFC before losing a decision victory to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He just couldn't find Wonderboy. It was hard, and which most people have trouble with that. But I will say 2 months before that fight, he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and his kidneys started to fail. So that was 2 months before the fight. Still made the fight, and you could tell when you watch the fight in there that he was a little off. So he lost that fight. Again, got that victory over Vicente Luque, and he cracked. He had Vicente Luque it wobbled in round 1 and then finally put him to sleep in round 3. And Vicente Luque has a hell of a chin, so it was interesting to see that. He was supposed to fight in January. I'm talking about Jeff Neal. Supposed to fight in January, but he had an undisclosed injury that he doesn't want to disclose to the public. So this fight got pushed out. Shavkat, according to Jeff Neal, Shavkat just kept posting stuff on Twitter, calling him out, saying, I want to fight you. And a bunch of his countrymen started tweeting all kinds of stuff, and Jeff was basically like, let's do it. Even though Jeff felt like he didn't have to do it, and he was actually told by his coach he shouldn't take this fight, he basically said, you know what, I'm gonna have to fight this guy later on anyway, so let's just do it. So again, missed weight by 4 pounds. That's a lot. He has to forfeit 30% of his purse. 4 pounds is a lot. Jeff seemed very confident in the lead up, so it was strange to see that he missed weight. But anyway, so on to Shavkat Rakhmonov, absolute beast, a beast. 16-0 overall, 4-0 in the UFC. He's been favored in all of his fights, and there's a reason for that. He's an absolute monster. His background is Master of Sport and Combat Sambo, and he's repping Kazakhstan. He's not a native of. He wasn't born in there, but I guess his family moved because they were super poor. That was an interesting story. He debuted against Alex Oliveira, the Brazilian cowboy. Which is a crazy fight to have, a crazy opponent to have in your debut, and he got a first round guillotine on him. This guy's great everywhere. Uses his length very well. He doesn't seem to flow very well, meaning like it doesn't look fully natural, if that makes sense. But he's just so sharp, doesn't make really any mistakes. He gets hit a little bit, but not a lot. And he's very opportunistic. I would say extremely opportunistic. So if something shows up, meaning like if he feels like he has an opening, he goes for it. And when he does get a takedown, his ground and pound is exceptionally sharp. Like, I mean, when he lands bombs on people, they get wobbled, they get binked up, and it's rough. He likes to throw these big spinning kicks. You don't see a whole lot of flashy striking from him, but you will see some spinning kicks to the head and to the body. And again, just that once these opponents go for shots, or they get wobbled and they go to the ground, it's pretty much a wrap, because his devastating ground and pound gets the job done. His last fight, he completely dominated the 10th ranked Neil Magny. He put a guillotine on with 2 seconds left. This guy has never seen the third round, so he's a finisher through and through. Again, I had a really hard time picking this one until I found out that Jeff Neal missed weight. I'm going to go with Shavkat by submission. I think he's going to soften Jeff Neal up. It'll eventually get to the ground, and I think that's where Shavkat will take an opportunity to get a submission. Now, I'm going to take a little drink before this one. Thank you all. Oh, that is lovely. That is lovely. Next is the women's flyweight title bout between the champion Valentina Shevchenko and the challenger, number 6 ranked Alexa Grasso. Valentina Shevchenko, one of the most dominant champions in UFC history, male or female, Muay Thai and kickboxing specialist. She came in with mostly striking. She competed in Muay Thai and kickboxing before her MMA career. She won the flyweight title in 2018. She's defended it 7 times, so this would be the 8th defense. She only has 2 losses in the UFC, and they were at 135 pounds, the bantamweight division. They were both losses to the female GOAT of MMA, Amanda Nunes. So that says something. She hasn't lost since then. Something interesting, she moves around a lot in her training. It's mostly done in Kyrgyzstan, but she'll move around. She'll kind of go to the UFC PI for a little bit. She spent 3 weeks in Tokyo, Japan with a new person she's been training with. That was interesting to me. If you guys aren't aware, her last fight was against Tayla Santos. She got a split decision win. A lot of people felt like Tayla got robbed in that fight. I had it 3 rounds for Tayla. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a robbery, but it was close. I just felt like Tayla did more in that fight. And if not for an accidental headbutt in the 3rd round, I feel like Tayla would have cruised to a victory. There was a clash of heads. I shouldn't say a headbutt. It was a clash of heads. And Tayla's right eye just swelled up immediately and closed up. And it was swelled up and closed up for the rest of the fight. And that happened in the 3rd round. So she basically fought 2 rounds with one eye. And Tayla was able to take her down. She was able to have her back multiple times. She stuffed takedowns from Shevchenko, and Shevchenko didn't really change her tune at all. She just felt like she won that whole fight, like there was no problem. I think sometimes she gets in champion mentality of just kind of not, instead of being honest, just pushing through and saying that it was a dominant fight. It really wasn't. I had her losing that fight. And one more thing about this fight is she says that Alexa is only a striker, and she needs to complete her MMA game. That was an interesting point to make, because I don't see it that way at all. Who knows if she actually studied Alexa? Who actually knows any of this is just sort of a mind game thing? Who knows? But speaking of Alexa Grasso, she's fighting out of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. Sharp boxing, strong and intelligent clinch work, very smooth transitional jiu-jitsu. Just real good stuff on the ground, and she wasn't known for jiu-jitsu. She still really isn't known for her jiu-jitsu. I think her jiu-jitsu is underrated. She's been training since a young age with her uncle, who's also the head coach of the gym she's at, Lobo Gym MMA, and that's her uncle's name is Francisco Grasso. So she was training as a little girl. You can tell when you watch her style that boxing is just deeply ingrained in there. Very sharp, very high guard, and she used to fight at strawweight. She was having trouble cutting. She looks very small at strawweight. And I know it sounds weird saying that, but I always thought like, oh, she's a smaller strawweight. Turns out she was having trouble making strawweight. And so she went 8-0 before she got into the UFC. Now she's 15-3 overall. Undefeated at flyweight, which is an interesting point. She's 4-0 at flyweight. She made the change from strawweight up to flyweight. Has gone 4-0 since. She really filled out her body. She doesn't look like a small flyweight. As a matter of fact, she's the same height as Valentina Shevchenko and Taila Santos. And when she fought against Macy Barber, who's a big 125er, like, you know, a lot of trouble making 125. She actually didn't look small against her, and she seemed to be able to hang with her strength-wise, so that was interesting. A couple points about this fight and how important it is for her. She's looking to solidify what I consider the Mexican champion The Mexican champion trilogy of 2023. And what I mean by that is in January, Brandon Moreno won the title, took it from Davison Figueiredo. Yair Rodriguez, it's an interim title, but it's a title. He won the featherweight interim title last month, and now it's March. Alexa Grasso's looking to make that happen. She's also looking to be the first Mexican-born female champion in the UFC ever, which is a really big deal. And you know what, goddammit? I got Alexa Grasso winning. I got her taking the upset. This is the upset special. I got her winning by submission, and I think it's going to be wonderful and delightful. And I just want to say, eso! That's right. We're going to do this. You know what? I think Valentina, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Valentina takes it. Obviously, she's the GOAT at 125. She's an absolute beast. She's defeated everybody else, and she's pretty much what she would be considered someone who cleaned out the 125-pound division if that last fight hadn't gone the way it did, and she hasn't fought Alexa Grasso yet. I just feel like Alexa's going to be able to hang with her, do a lot better standing up than we think. I think when Valentina inevitably goes for a takedown, she might get the takedown, but in the scramble, I think Alexa's going to surprise her. I think Alexa's going to surprise her with her strength at that weight, and I think we're going to see a submission, and it's going to be a crazy scene. I think we're going to see, obviously, the crying and all that, but let's go Mexico. That's what I gotta say about that. Now on to the main event, the big deal of this card, the vacant heavyweight title bout between John Bones Jones and Cyril Bongamin Gan. So obviously the big story is all about John Jones. Everyone's talking about John Jones. If you don't know who John Jones is, he's widely considered the GOAT of MMA, the greatest of all time, former two-time light heavyweight champion. He's the youngest champion in UFC history, meaning like the youngest to get the belt. He won his title in 2011 when he was 23 years old. He's had 11 title defenses total. And I call him the two-time champ because he was stripped of the belt twice, so he had to win it back. The other stuff about John Jones, the hit and run, the domestic violence, the DUI charges, DWI charges, just a little piece of the story. I'll be honest, as a person, never met John Jones, but everything I've ever seen from him, I was watching MMA before he made his debut in the UFC. I just see this type of human that doesn't really care about other human beings. It's the John Jones show. This is all about him feeling good about himself and wanting to be the type of athlete we saw in the 80s and 90s, even before that, who can do whatever he wants and just sweep shit under the rug and just be, pretty much a bad person outside of the octagon. But part of that is what makes him so dominant, because he's so completely into himself, so completely tied up and narcissistic that's the perfect mentality you need to be an amazing athlete in a sport where it's a very lonely time in the octagon, where it's all about you finding yourself and getting victories. It's perfect. He hasn't fought since February 8th, 2020. And the reason I got into that whole thing about the personal stuff is just because I'm watching all this pre-fight stuff. It's the same thing it's always been. Jon Jones doing terrible things, not wanting to pay for it, always talking about forgiveness. And every time someone brings up something rough, we got to hear about Jesus Christ and how he feels about forgiveness and how, these quotes that he has all tied up and all ready to go for media to make himself look like a good guy. The whole fucking week and the whole month and the whole last 3 months has been the let's make Jon Jones look like a good guy tour. And anyone who's a real fan, a longtime fan of MMA, is most likely sick of it. We all respect his game. We all respect what he's done inside the octagon. The eye pokes are great. But no, he has beat everybody. He doesn't have any real losses. So he's amazing. His talent is insane. His size was insane. And that's a big, big question for this fight. Will his size matter? Will he be able to fill out this body, this idea of what he was supposed to be at heavyweight? Because he took 3 years off. He hasn't fought since February 8th, 2020, when he vacated his light heavyweight title, spent those 3 years bulking up, getting ready for a heavyweight fight. He said he wanted to fight in the heavyweight division. He wanted to win the heavyweight title. And so to answer the question about the size, he fucking showed up. He weighed in this morning, today's Friday, at 248 pounds. And there was a whole thing online, especially with Chael Sonnen and a bunch of other people talking about how much he's going to weigh. He didn't want to tell anyone how much he was going to weigh. He's very intelligent on a few levels. One of them is playing the game, getting people to get the mystery going, people wondering what's going on. And he weighed in at 248. There was a lot of people were saying, is he going to be 230, 235? Is he going to make the 240 range? He actually weighed half a pound heavier than Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane came in at 247.5. So he's bigger. He's heavier. He's heavier by a half pound. So that's a significant factor because we all know Jon Jones's ground game is light years ahead of Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane basically, had a rough time. We'll get into that in a second, but he's had some rough time on the ground. He actually has some submission victories, so it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. It's just he's not on the Jon Jones level. But again, Jon Jones is coming up into the weight class. He's filled up this body. He's never competed at the pro level in the UFC against anybody at heavyweight. That's the question mark. That's the mystery. Ciryl Gane, 13-0 in Muay Thai before he got into MMA. He went 10-0 in MMA before he lost a unanimous decision to then champ Francis Ngannou. That was January of last year, 2022. He fights in this karate sort of side stance, hands low, very quick and athletic feet. A lot of fighters have trouble finding him because he moves so well for such a big guy. And Ngannou was always looked at as like this scary boogeyman who puts everyone to sleep. And he couldn't really catch Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane was doing a great job moving around and was winning in the stand-up battle. So Francis Ngannou was throwing big haymakers, swinging, missing, and he figured, man, I got to take this guy down. He got a few takedowns on Ciryl, and Ciryl lost the fight because he couldn't get up and he was in bad positions. He just didn't have the technique to get back up. He didn't have the technique to defeat Ngannou's technique or that power to be able to get up. So he lost that fight. His most recent fight was against Tai Tuivasa in September. Great fight. If you guys ever want to catch that fight, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Great fight. Two guys just landing bombs on each other. But yeah, Ciryl got the KO victory over Tai Tuivasa. One interesting thing to think of too, in that fight, Ciryl Gane broke his right hand. There's a whole lot of talk going on right now. He had surgery that month, so that would have been 6 months ago. Had hand surgery to fix a broken hand. There's been some pictures popping up this week on social media showing Ciryl Gane's hand really blown up like a balloon, and they asked him about it in a press conference, and he just said, it's fine now, like I'm great, there's no problem with it, I'm going to be throwing it all day. Honestly, I didn't even know what to do with this fight because there's a ton of mystery here. Similar, there was some mystery in the Bo Nickel fight. This one is like even harder to figure out because we've never seen Jon Jones at heavyweight. We've never seen him compete at heavyweight. We've never seen him at 248 pounds. We don't know if he can still move as well as he did at 205. We don't know if he'll be able to catch Ciryl Gane, but we also don't know if he's going to be able to hang with a heavier guy. Ciryl Gane's 247 pounds. He's used to fighting guys 205. They're usually like 220 by the time the fight starts. But a bigger guy and a fast-moving athlete. John Jones has been just dismissing Cyril Gane, saying he's not anywhere near his level. True. That he's not that great of a striker. He's athletic, but that's just footwork. He doesn't know about the grind. I really, 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 really want Cyril Gane to win this fight. It's just very hard to pick against John Jones in the scenario that he's heavier than Cyril Gane, and he's looking to take it to the ground. Chael Sonnen almost got me. Chael Sonnen's talking about how the first thing to go, the old saying, the last thing to go when you're a fighter is your power. Well, he feels the first thing to go is your wrestling. And if his wrestling is gone and he can't take Cyril Gane down, can he stand with him? Who knows? I'm scared as fuck to make this pick. But I just think based on the fact that he is slightly heavier, I think he's going to, and the thing about John Jones is he knows how to win. He knows how to dig deep and get the W. He knows how to, on the fly, come up with a new game plan and stick to it. He's so deathly afraid of losing. It's his biggest fear in the world. And for that, I think John Jones is going to get a TKO victory. I think he's going to somehow get the fight to the ground. Probably it's most likely going to be some cage work. But I could totally see Cyril Gane getting upset here. I can totally see him landing a few shots that Bones isn't ready for, and Bones maybe not being able to handle the weight like he thinks he can. Who knows? It bugs me, but I'm picking John Jones on this one. So anyway, that's this main card preview. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time. I did a bunch of analysis, and so I just wanted to make it easier for you guys. I have a lot of friends that don't know shit about MMA, and they're always asking me questions. And every Friday at work, I'm getting people like, who were your picks? You got your pick? And I'm like, just wait and listen. So I appreciate you guys watching this and listening to this. I want to do this for every pay-per-view if possible, at least for the rest of the year. I hope that I helped you guys out. I hope I'm 5-0 on this one. That would be sweet to be fucking 14-1. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe, tell your homies, tell your friends. Again, it's something for people who don't know what's going on, or maybe you do know a little bit, but you didn't have time to watch, 10 hours of pre-fight media or whatever. You don't remember, every fighter's last 3 or 4 fights. Or maybe you're going to be at somebody's house at a party watching the fight, and you want to have a little bit to be able to talk about, or you want to just have this information. So that's what this is for, so that you don't have to do all that. I really appreciate you guys listening. Let me know what you think in the comments again. Subscribe. Send this to everyone. Let everyone else know that I'm doing this. If you want to be part of it, I'll take any sort of help. You want to send some comments. If I did help you out, check out the description. This is for entertainment purposes only. Shout out to Into the AM. Let me get that. I'm blocking with my left hand. There you go. Into the AM. These cool ass shirts I'm always wearing. Most of the time you see me doing this or my podcast, I'm wearing Into the AM shirts. It's a cool company. I like their stuff. I got some shorts from them. So check out, if you want to check them out, there's links down in the description. Click on that. Appreciate you guys listening. I'm out.